Welcome to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gillen, and this is a space where women who value achievement, success, accomplishment, and wealth, but also crave happiness, love, joy, and deep fulfillment come to remember that we get to have both. Not by doing more, but by being more of who we truly are. In this show, we explore identity, energy, alignment, and embodiment because you didn't come here to follow someone else's rules. You came to right your own. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gillen, and today our conversation is around the identity crisis that no one talks about. The identity crisis that no one talks about. And as always, I want to share with you, where did this idea come from? I've been noticing a theme in 2026. The deeper I go into identity work for myself, with my clients, in conversations that I'm having, I see that there is a very common theme. And the theme is, you did everything right, and it still doesn't feel good. That is the theme. I did it right. I achieved the things. My team is this big. I'm making this much money. I have this car, this job, this thing. This feels amazing. I'm so excited. Like, it's not this feels amazing. It's I have these amazing things and it doesn't feel amazing. I have these amazing things and it doesn't feel amazing. So what I want to do in this particular episode is break down what is actually happening here, what the identity crisis is, and how do we go about fixing it? Because this is the core of what we do. If you've been here for a while, you know that I believe two things and two things only create our reality, our identity and our energy, right? Our identity and our energy, and our identity very much impacts the energy of which we show up in. Most people like to tackle the energy game because that's the fun, sexy part, but the real work is in identity. So what we're actually doing here is, many of you think that the problem, and that I've done everything right and it still feels wrong, is that it's burnout, or that you need a new strategy, or maybe you're just lazy, right? But what actually here is happening is it's an identity issue. It's happening at a much deeper level, because high achievers don't have an action problem. You don't have an action problem. Effort is not your issue. What is the hiccup in your giddy up, if you will, the thing standing between you and where you want to go, is your identity. It is an identity problem. Y'all know I don't like the word problem, but because words make sense here. So today, what we're actually going to do is I'm going to tell you what are the symptoms of this identity crisis, right? What are the symptoms of, like, hey, I'm just operating from a perspective that is no longer serving me, is the way that I want to say that, right? I'm going to explain to you what's actually happening here. I'm going to talk about why traditional personal development hasn't worked for you to solve this problem. And then we're going to go from there. I'm going to give you some next steps, some action items that you can take. Okay. So let's first talk about the symptoms. Let's diagnose. Are you in this identity crisis? Are you, and when I say identity crisis, what do I mean by that? I mean that you are operating from an identity that is not fully yours. This crisis of, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I'm working towards, because that's what's underneath the, I did everything that I was supposed to do. Why does it still feel so hard? Or why doesn't this feel better? Or why am I not happy? Is because you have been building from an identity that is not yours, right? So here are the symptoms, if you will, of an identity crisis. First and foremost, you did everything right and it feels wrong. That's the first one, right? You followed the formula, you hit the goals, it still feels heavy. That is how you know, because how could you possibly have everything that you set out to achieve and be unhappy? How could you possibly be at the top of your game, be a high achiever, and not be fulfilled? Other than the fact that the things that it's not fulfilling because it's not what you want. It's not fulfilling because it's not really you. When I woke up feeling so out of alignment in my life, it was because I had followed the formula. I'd hit the goal. It felt heavy because it wasn't achieving for the sake of achieving. It eventually will leave you empty and tired. So what do we do here, right? We're doing everything right and it still feels wrong. We ask ourselves the question, what do I want? And that's what I hope to answer for you over the next coming weeks, because we're going to go deep into identity. I think that this is life-changing work, and I think it's really, really important. So stay with me here, because this is the part that I think high achievers miss. And I'm going to go off script for just a minute. We don't miss this part. We try to skip this part because it's the self-reflection part. It's the yucky part. It's the emotional part. It's the part we don't have time for because too many people are depending on us. But that's why I'm giving you these symptoms, because you don't use words normal people use because you're not weak, right? You don't use words normal people do because you're not afraid of hard work. You use different words. So when you have everything that you set out to achieve and it still feels hard, it means that you are operating from I'm going to call it the wrong plane, the wrong ecosystem. You're operating from your mind. So a lot of what I talk about in my work with my clients is mind, body, soul connection, right? And I know that sounds spiritual and I know that sounds woo, but there's a reason you're here and the reason you're listening to this. And if you are in this space where you did all of the things and it still feels wrong, it's because not all three of those parts of you are in alignment, right? You're operating from the mind, from what's logical, from what makes sense, from what feels safe, from what, the path that you've always been on. And just because it's the path you've always been on doesn't mean it's the path of your soul. And so that's where this dissatisfaction is coming from, because you're overly identified with the physical senses, right? Symptom number 2 that you are having an identity crisis is that nothing is fun anymore. Everything still feels strategic. And I feel this in my heart of hearts. I've probably told you all this story before. When I started doing this work with Stacey B, when I started learning about the energy game, she had asked me once, like, Ryan, what do you do for fun? And I was like, fun, I work, right? And I told myself that it was fun, but it wasn't anymore, right? Because it became work. There is a very big energetic difference behind working, getting up every day and checking off the tasks versus creating, getting up every day and doing things that set your soul on fire. I talk about this podcast all of the time. It is one of the things that you cannot keep me from doing. There is never not enough time in the days to do this. When I see this on my to-do list for the day, I get excited about it because it's something that I love so much, right? But when I was operating from that old identity, that overachiever, that the world is, the weight of the world is on my shoulders and I'm the one that has to solve everybody's problem, nothing was fun. It was strategic, but it wasn't fun. And I believe this is my core system. I'm not going to tell you what I don't believe. I'm going to tell you what I do believe. What I do believe is that we were meant to have fun. We were meant to have good lives. We were meant to enjoy what we do every day. And so if you're not enjoying what you do every day, if you're not having fun, you are operating from an identity that isn't yours. Again, your mind, body, soul is not connected. Somewhere you are out of balance. Okay? Symptom number 3 that you are in an identity crisis, the one that nobody is talking about, is that when someone asks what you want, you answer in metrics. So when I ask high achievers, what do you want? It's almost always the first question I ask them when we get into conversation. What do you want? And they will tell me, I want to have $1 million company. I want to be in this corner. I want to be the VP of this by the end of this year. These are the milestones I hope to set. But they don't tell me about their feelings. They don't tell me about their experiences. They tell me about the things that they're going to achieve, right? They tell me about the things they are going to do. And what you are doing and what you want are two entirely different things. If the only thing that you're doing is chasing metrics, meaning chasing a revenue amount or chasing a job title, you are probably out of alignment. Because if you were really, truly living your life to the potential that is available to you on this planet that I know that you have inside of you, you wouldn't say $1 million business. You would say, I am building the most incredible company and I'm absolutely positively obsessed with it. Let me tell you what we're doing. Not only are we going to make a fuck ton of money, because of course we are, but we are going to change the lives of high achieving women. Change the lives of high achieving women. Give them the gift that I have found, that I have developed, that I've cultivated inside of myself, which is a life that I am fucking obsessed with. So what I want is that, right? Along the way, does money come with that? Of course. Are there milestones? Yes. But what you want, what I think we all want, what our souls want, again, when we are fully operating in alignment, mind, body, soul connection, we don't want milestones. We don't want external things. We want feelings. External things are part of that. I just want to be so clear. I am never in a million years going to ask you to put down your material desires. In fact, I think you should probably turn them the fuck up, right? But when you play the energy game, when you really own your identity as the creator of your reality, the things are a byproduct. And I know that sounds like such fucking bullshit, but I live it every day and I can't think of better words to tell you that the revenue and the promotions and the milestones, those things that you think that you want, you only want them because of the way you think you're going to make you feel. So what you want is a life that feels however you think money is going to make you feel, right? What you want is whatever you think that promotion is going to make you feel. And when you can start to talk about your life in terms of the experiences that you're having and the feelings that you're experiencing, those other material things are naturally going to follow when you're fully locked into your creator identity, right? Symptom number 4 that you are experiencing an identity crisis is that you can't name goals outside of business. This is a little different than the last one, right? If you can't tell me what you're working on outside of your business because you're not working on anything outside of your business, you have no hobbies, you have no health and fitness goals, you have no goals in your relationships, you are out of alignment, right? You are operating, I'm going to call it out of harmony. right, with who you are, because you are a human. You are a whole human. You are not just a producer. You are not a machine. I say this all the time when I talk about masculine and feminine energy. You are a masterpiece, not a machine. So if you don't have any goals outside of business, you're out of alignment. And that can't possibly be what your soul came to this planet to do. So you're in this identity crisis of I'm achieving these things, but I'm not happy, because if your business disappeared, who are you? That means that you don't have a core identity at your soul, right? You don't have a core identity when you wake up in the morning that drives you. You're literally just being driven by your business, by your career, by your job. And I do not believe at all that that's what you were put on this planet to do. Remember, life is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be amazing. The desires of your heart are put there by God. So if you don't have any goals outside of your business, that means that the human part of you, the living part of you, is neglected. And I promise you that is not what God wants for your life, right? Symptom number 5, you're having an identity crisis, is that your whole personality is your career. Very similar. Your whole personality is your career. See how these 3 come together? When someone asks what you want, you answer metrics. You can't name goals outside of your business, and your whole personality is your career. You are over-identified with your career. All of your value is in what you produce, what you do, the work that you do, which has left you, the real you, which is your heart and your soul and your desires and your dreams and your goals and your playfulness and your creativity and the little girl inside of you that just wants to play and have fun again. If she's not being involved in decisions, if she's not being involved in your life, you are always going to be out of balance, right? All the other areas of your life are supporting actors to your career, which means your career has all the power. You don't. Okay. Which leads to symptom number 6, which I know the majority of you, I've yet to speak to a high achieving woman who isn't experiencing this. Symptom number 6, that you are in identity crisis. There's constant chaos or low grade stress in your life. Everything feels like, it doesn't necessarily feel like it's on fire anymore, right? You don't feel the fire. Nothing feels urgent, but there's just this low grade tension in your life where everything feels just a little harder than it should. Everything feels just a little like, it just feels like nothing can go your way. You're like, I know that we're going to get there, but God, why is this so fucking hard, right? Your human keeps overriding your soul. Every time you let your human brain, the logic, the things that make sense override what your soul actually wants, you create stress. Misalignment shows up as overwhelm because you don't want to do the things on your to-do list because you don't want that life anymore. You don't want to be that person anymore, and you don't know how to change it. And so it just turns into this festering energy of tension that evades every single area of your life. That is not who you are. That is not what you came here to do. That is not the experience that you chose when you chose this time-space reality to be here. Okay? So constant chaos or low-grade stress say that something is out of alignment here, that I'm not operating from wholeness, that I'm not operating from who I truly am, because who I truly am is the one who gets to have it all. Because why the fuck not? Because God, source, the universe made me, right? Symptom number 7, that you're having an identity crisis is you feel like different people in different rooms. I had a very specific conversation with a woman on the Closers Cruise. So there's a real estate cruise that I spoke on back in January. I talked about the energetics of winning, of course. And I was talking to one woman. We were at the bar. It was late. It was towards the end of the week where everybody's kind of running out of steam. And I heard her say, I was in one conversation and she was talking in another one. And she said something along the lines of, I don't remember the exact quote, but essentially that like there was the realtor version of her and then there was the mom version of her. And I kind of turned around because you know me, I just can't help myself. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on a second. You are only one you. There is only one you. And yes, you wear a lot of different roles. You have a lot of different responsibilities. We all do. But if you are a completely different version of yourself, depending on who you're interfacing with, whether it is your clients or your husband or your children or your friends, and there is no through line in there, or you're so far away from who you truly are, you are absolutely positively operating from an identity that is not yours, right? There's only one you. And of course, you have to curb your energy to the area. I'm not saying that that's not true, but there's a huge difference between preparing your energy for your husband and preparing your energy from a client and feeling like you have to be 2 entirely different people. Like you have to take one mask off and put another mask on. If you are putting on a mask, my friend, you are not operating from wholeness. You are not operating from your true identity. And that is why your life, despite being extraordinary, feels so fucking heavy. It's the mask that you're wearing. And if you are wearing a mask in any room, whether it is still putting on the mask, being the strong one and the brave one, when you don't feel that way anymore, your life, your energy is eventually going to be depleted, right? Symptom number 8. You have always felt different, but you tried to fit in. This is a very new realization for me. So I'm going to go a little rogue and tell you what has happened here. So I've always been a high achiever, much like you. Everything I set out to do in life, if I'm really honest, I fucking did it, right? I wanted to do one scholarship out of the small town of Paola, Kansas. I did it, right? Like I wanted a 6-figure corporate salary. I did it. I wanted $1 million business. I did it. I wanted, I wanted it. I did it. I wanted it. I did it, right? But here's the problem with that, the challenge with that. We're going to use the word challenge. Here's the challenge with that. As I tried to do those things the same way everybody else does those things. I tried to do those things the way the rest of the world does them. The popular way of doing them, the trendy way of doing them. Because obviously, if it's popular and it's trendy, it must be the right way, right? No. I have always been different. I have always been different than other people. What I think is important, different. How I see a room is different. How I think is different. The goals that I have in life, how I spend my time is different. And it has always been this way. And I've just been trying to fit myself in a fucking box because the tribal instinct kicks in, right? It is a human instinct to want to fit in, because if you did not fit in, when you were a kid, you were ousted from the tribe, and being ousted from the tribe was sudden death. If you got left alone in the jungle, you were dead, right? So we are so wired for this connection, and we live in a world that has given us a very clear picture of what success and business and professionalism looks like. And so we have been trying to fit ourselves into that fucking box. And that is not who we are. That is not who you are. You are not average. You are not like everyone else, but you have built your life to match the average blueprint. So of course, your energy is off. Of course, your identity is off. You're trying to play small. And I don't mean play small in regards to necessarily money or goals, but play small for you. You continue to limit yourself because the rest of the world experiences limitations. And if you don't experience the same limitations the rest of the world experiences, how will you fit in, right? How will you fit in? Well, my friend, you're not going to fit in those rooms, but you fit in here. But you fit in here. So let me tell you what is actually happening. You built a life around who you thought you had to be. The identity crisis that I have been talking to you about for the past however many minutes, 16, 17 minutes that I've been talking to you about. What has happened here is that you have built a life around who you thought you had to be, because what I know about you, you are smart. You are capable. You were told there was a prize at the end, and that prize was supposed to be happiness. That prize was supposed to be fulfillment. It was supposed to feel good. You executed on every blueprint you were handed, and in the short term, it created results. There might have even been times in your journey when it was fun. I know for sure for me, on my journey to $1 million year, I had a fuck ton of fun, right? I went to Costa Rica with a group of women and got on a yacht and watched monkeys steal food off, like holy bananas. I went to Mexico and spoke on a panel with other 7-figure business owners and wandered around resorts and had conversations about business. I was on a fucking cruise ship, right? Like I had fun. Parts of it were fun. But it wasn't sustainable because it became a performance. It became this identity fusion where I was no longer Ryan who happened to run a business. I was a business owner. I was no longer Ryan who happened to make good money. I was the breadwinner. It became this disconnection. I disconnected from Ryan and I became the roles. The identity crisis here is not that you failed. It's that you succeeded at being someone that you are not. And the reason why you have lived with this problem undiagnosed for so fucking long is because most personal development focuses on action. Every time you have gone to look for a solution to what you feel is a problem in your life, meaning I'm doing everything that I am supposed to do and it doesn't feel good, you have gone out into whether it's personal development, whether it's therapy, whether it's professional development, whether it's mastermind courses, certifications, more degrees, whatever you have done, and everyone says, take more actions. Take more action. Take different action. But high achievers don't need more action yet. Sometimes you do need more action, sometimes. But taking action from a misaligned identity is just going to create more of the same. Ask me how I know. That's why I was dissatisfied in my corporate career, despite getting exactly what I wanted. So then I quit that job and I built a business and I got exactly what I wanted and I was dissatisfied again. Taking action, we're going to solve your problem. Action does solve a lot of problems. I'm going to be real clear. Action solves a lot of problems for a lot of people. I'm also not telling you that you're not going to have to put effort into whatever it is you do in your life, that you're not going to have to show up and you're not going to be challenged. But if you are operating from this identity that is not yours, right? This identity you thought you had to be, all the action in the world is not going to fucking get you where you want to go. And again, this is my own personal journey. This is not theory. This is mine. I've seen it. And I have figured out a way how to stop fucking doing that to myself. In last week's podcast, the 95% try, 5% win podcast, right? I talked about, the difference. You're a big part of the 5%. Even if you don't feel that way, you're a big part of the 5%. Right? Now it's recalibrating. So why is this so common for high achievers? Why are all of us walking around feeling this way? Again, you don't fit the law of averages. You think differently than most people. You have a higher capacity, right? You can see things other people can't see. You just maybe don't know that about yourself. You move faster than most. But you tried to fit in with the majority. You tried to live by the rules because on top of all of that, you were also told to be a rule follower because good girls were rule followers. So on top of trying to fit yourself into a box you don't fucking fit in, now you've got this good girl fucking conditioning going on. And so you built success based on internal programming. And now what is happening is your soul is larger, is louder. Your soul is trying to get your attention, that mind, body, soul connection I keep talking about. Your soul is like, listen, something has got to change. That tension, that is the crisis. That is the actual crisis, is that your soul is telling you that we are dangerously close to collapse if we don't do something different. And whatever that collapse looks like, for me, it was the collapse of my business. That's what collapsed for me. I've watched it be the collapse of health. I've watched it be the collapse of marriages. But if you don't solve for that tension, that is the crisis. So what do we do instead? What do we do instead? We stop fucking asking, what should I do? And we start asking, who am I? And what do I want? Who am I at the soul level, at my core, past all of the roles that I carry, perhaps past all of the things I tell myself I have to do in order to fit in and to be approved and to be liked and to get the business and da-da-da-da-da-da. We have to shift from this performance-based identity. I have to perform to get what I want, to creator identity, to I'm the one calling the shots here. We go from this role-based identity, right? Entrepreneur, breadwinner, real estate agent, corporate executive, partner, whatever that is, into what is your frequency? Who are you at your core, regardless of what is going on in the outside world? Most of us, our core frequency is just pure fucking static because we don't know who we are. And that is why your life feels staticky, because your core frequency, your soul, is tied up in roles that aren't yours. So if you want to have a radically different experience of life, you have got to get back in touch with who you are at your core. That is why it doesn't matter how many courses you take, how many new strategies you deploy, it doesn't feel any different. It never gets easier. And it's not going to get easier until you get right with that core frequency, with that creator identity. What I am doing right now is an identity reset intensive. Okay, an identity reset intensive. This is the antidote to this. This is how we take this deep. Okay, because the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a deep dive teaching on identity. I touched on it right here. I touched on the crisis. But what is identity? What do you mean, Ryan? Who am I and what do I want? Who am I? Am I soul? Like those questions, you think you don't know the answer to them because you haven't asked them in so long. Right? So I'm going to walk you through a very specific teaching of how I did this work, how I did this reflection in a way that I could actually integrate it into my life. Right? So that's the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give you this audio training. I'm going to give you a workbook. We did this in Create 2026. If you've been around to Create 2026, this is the exact same format, except we're doing this from the identity reset. We're going to reset your identity to who the fuck you are and what you actually want. So in addition to the teaching that I'm going to tell you my exact process, right? How I made my complete internal one in my life, right? How I went from crying on my bathroom floor to $1.2 million, to living a life that I'm fucking obsessed with, being in love, like experiencing a romantic relationship I didn't even know that I wanted, experiencing a lifestyle business that I would have laughed at years ago, like total 180. I'm a completely different human, right? So that entire kind of how I did that, I'm going to give you that and then a workbook to really do your own work. And then what we're going to do together is a 60-minute private session, because reflection is great, but you can't solve a problem at the same level of consciousness that created it, which is why you continue to try to move the outside pieces and they aren't working for you. Okay. This cannot be surface level group fluff, right? The identity reset is about upgrading who you are, or not necessarily upgrading who you are, but remembering who the fuck you are. I like that better. We're not upgrading who you are. You don't need an upgrade. It's remembering who the fuck you are, because she is inside of you. What's going to happen when you start asking yourself these questions, when you and I start sharing this energy together and we start creating this bigger picture for you, you're going to remember some of the things that you're like, gosh, I remember wanting that in my early 20s. I have been saying for years, I want to do it. Like, the things that come out of people's mouth is wild. So here's the deal. If you feel off, if you feel heavy, if you feel like something is missing, but you can't name it, again, you're not broken. I feel like I say this every week. You are disconnected. Okay? You are disconnected. So this entire month, I'm really dedicated to going deep into identity. I'm really excited about this. So all of our podcasts this month are going to go deep into an identity in a way that no one else is willing to, but in a way that really speaks to the high achiever. Again, that's what makes this space so special. This isn't average personal development. This isn't try harder. Are you showing up at 100%? This is, I have been giving 110% for so long that I don't even know what I'm chasing anymore. That's the different conversation we're having here. So if you feel called, book an identity reset. So here's the deal with identity reset. There's 30 of them available. So either I'm going to book all 30 of them, or I think you're going to get till maybe the first week in April. So I think I've got about 5 weeks really deep into identity. That's what's going to be available. So book the session. They're $297. If you remember, Create 2026 was $197. Those were so powerful, so amazing. I was obsessed that I knew that $297 was a really great price point. But after this one, they're going to go up again. So you can keep waiting, game on. But this is, again, the lowest price you're going to see. There's either 30 of them or the 5 weeks. Either way, all 5 weeks, even if we sell out of the identity resets, I'm going to still keep delivering the 5 weeks of identity content I have here for you. I think it's going to be really powerful. I think one of the things that I'm realizing in my work, and as always, I'm always sharing with you guys, is going deeper into topics, right? It's great to listen to a podcast and you get an idea and you get the dopamine hit, but the deeper we go into a topic, the more that we repeat something. Because for me as a content creator, right, my fear is always like, oh, they've heard this before. Oh, I've told them this before, right? But I also know that every time you listen to this podcast, you're a different version of you. Maybe you're bringing different energy to the space, maybe a different understanding, maybe something else happened and it all of a sudden clicks. So I'm really testing this idea of going really deep into these topics in a meaningful way, so you can actually start to see shifts instead of just jumping from topic to topic. So for now, we're doing identity for 5 weeks. The identity reset is your next best step. $97, you're going to get a teaching from me, a workbook from me, and we're going to have a 60-minute one-on-one. And we're going to have you so anchored into who you are and what the fuck you want that the results will be fucking inevitable. Link is in my bio. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Uncensored Self podcast. If this conversation cracked something open for you, trust that that's the work. And share this episode with a woman in your life who's ready to stop performing and start creating. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe, leave a review. It helps this message reach the women who need it most. Remember, you're the creator. The rules are yours. And your uncensored self, she already knows what to do. Keep leading, keep listening, keep becoming.